Hey guys, what's going on? Justin Williams here with Dirt Time Adventures, and I'm beginning a new series called Forager's Find, where I'll be taking a look at different plant species that are in my area and that are pretty common throughout the eastern woodlands and United States. In this series, I want to cover a little bit about the plant families and the plant's uses. We'll be looking at everything from trees, shrubs, to medicinal and edible plants, and everything in between. And so I encourage you guys to be sure to share and subscribe and follow along as we begin this journey and this forager's find, discovering new plants in our area and talking about them. Now, we are going to be looking for plants in different settings and environments, because plants that we primarily use are most abundant in disturbed ground, where the area has been disturbed. And so we can find these plants in a wilderness environment, but they're just going to be more abundant and more available to us in a urban environment. So some of the videos will have some background noise. Encourage you guys just to ignore that and be sure to listen to the content. And so today we are actually going to be covering the yucca plant. Now, the yucca plant is absolutely one of my favorites. Now, I have a couple, but this one definitely is in the top. Now, the great thing about the yucca is the number of uses that it has. It has uses everything from being edible to the little blooms. Make sure you check them for bugs, because you don't want to eat bugs. And they taste amazing. They're one of my favorite wild edibles. You can fry it up. You can make a stew with it. You can batter them. I've even heard of people drying them out and making bread with them. So that is a huge asset, to be able to have an edible plant that you can eat and fry and do so many different things with it. And because it tastes like asparagus, that's how I remember the name of the plant family. It's actually part of the Agave Asparagacea family. And so it's delicious, and you can't go wrong with a plant that tastes like asparagus, unless you were like me as a little kid and hated greens. But I've gotten over that, and I've learned to have an appreciation for the taste of plants. So it's not only is it edible, it's amazing for fire starting, because the stalk here in the middle, hopefully you can see that, the stalk in the center of this plant is actually, once it dies, it'll dry and become a nice woody stalk. And with that woody stalk, I can actually make bow drill fire. And so this one here is actually my very first bow drill kit from years ago that I learned bow drill fire with. And it was an agave, a yucca stalk. And so, edible plant, the stalk can be used for firecraft. And then a few of the other amazing things about the yucca plant is the leaves have multiple uses as well. The leaves can be used to make fibers for making cordage. And as you got to be careful with them, because they are very pointy. And you can break down those fibers and make cordage. And if you've been out in the woods any amount of time, you know how important cordage is. So being able to break down the fibers in this leaf and weave together some cordage is huge. Also, yucca has been known to have one of the strongest tensile strengths out of most plant fibers. Now, I'm sure there's some out there that are more, but it has extremely strong tensile strength. So edible, fire, cordage, and not only that, you can take the little needles that are on the tips of it, and you can make in certain different types, there's different types of yucca, you can take the needles off the tips and actually make a needle and thread, which you could use to sew up your gear or to sew up a wound. I wouldn't want to have to, but I'm sure you could if you needed to. So another thing that people don't realize about the yucca plant is it has saponin in it. S-A-P-O-N-I-N, saponin. And the saponin pretty much is a fancy word for soap. So you can take the plant and make soap from it. Now there's saponin in the leaves, the stalk, and the root, but the most condensed amount of saponin is in the root, and that's where you hear terms like soap root. And you can actually make soap from this plant. Now, not like your store-bought soap, but a wilderness soap. You can use it to wash dishes. I've heard people making shampoo with it. You can body wash with it. It will cleanse and disinfect. It's an amazing plant. So guys, I encourage you to get out there, experiment, learn these plants, because they have 1,000,001 uses. And if all else fails, you can take the leaves and weave you some sandals, or weave you a hat, or make you a skirt. So the yucca, I hope you guys enjoy and learned a little bit about the yucca today. And I want to encourage you guys to check back next week as we try to look at some other plants. Just around me, I can see horseweed, I can see dog fennel, I can see pokeweed, I can see, looks like there's some horseweed over there. So there's all kinds of plants just in this area we can cover, and even some cattail over here. And we'll break these plants down and be looking at them over the next few weeks. And we'll just probably continue this series on as there's interest. And just keep in mind, like I said, it is summertime, so spring is really the prime wild edible season and plants, and but don't let that keep you, because it's summertime, from getting out and learning about these amazing plants. And you know, I don't expect to be an herbologist and get out there, but you know, the more we can learn about nature and God's great provisions, the more we can be self-reliant. So as always, guys, I want to encourage you to keep it practical, primitive, and prepared.